worked as a writer and a director at the York Theater, and I love it. And I think it's one of the most important off-Broadway spaces, maybe the most important off-Broadway space in New York, and in fact the country, because it presents so many varied types of shows. And you know, I have spent hundreds, if not thousands of hours being entertained, seeing great shows, new shows, classic musicals, revivals of shows I always wondered what they were, and I get to see exactly what they had been, and done so well with so many talented people and stars. I've seen evenings of presentations of the works of great writers that I admire, like Sheldon Harnick, and I'm so proud to be part of it and have done some of my shows there. But mostly, I think the York Theater is probably the premium off-Broadway theater company in New York, and probably the country. So I really want to endorse and tell you how much I love the York Theater and how much it means to all of us everywhere in the world.
When I see a show at the York, there's something special about the experience, which I've always sensed. I'm not just there watching the show, but I feel that I'm bonded with the people around me watching the show. We're all experiencing it together. There's this vibe that makes the experience just that much richer and that much enjoyable. As a writer, I felt supported and respected, something that I do not take for granted, especially coming from the world of television. They treated me wonderfully, and I'm so thankful that I had that experience to have my show done there. So as a audience member and as a writer, I've come to witness how the passion of the York Theater burns so brightly, and that even a flood cannot extinguish it.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Jim Morgan, everybody at the York Theater, for producing our show, A Taste of Things to Come, that I wrote with Holly Levin. It was the most fantastic experience. Everything from the way you're treated by the staff and everyone at the York. We never could have done it without you, and the York Theater has been very important, I know, in my life and the lives of so many people in New York City. So here's to more years at the York.
The York has a coveted place on our walls and in my heart. Now, not only did the York produce a first-class revival of No Way to Treat a Lady and presented a concert version of The Gig, which led to an original cast album through J Records, but there were also readings of Barnstormer and Children's Letters to God. I realize the York is trying to rebuild following an extensive flood, and we all hope that it can stay at St. Peter's Church. But no matter where they land, a proverb comes to mind. Home is where the heart is. While I also propose home is where the art is. So thank you, Jim Morgan, for your passion, your support, and your unwavering leadership. And thank you, York Theater.
Over the years, whenever Peter and I have had a new musical that we needed to try out, our first thought would be, let's call Jim Morgan at the York. And the York would always be there, generously providing us with a reading, with an audience, with feedback and support. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, York Theater, for all you've done for us writers. Now it's our turn to return the love and support.
They are just one of the great treasures of New York City, and long may you wave, York Theater Company. I'm so grateful for you, and as are all people who love musical theater. Thank you.
In its 50-year history, the York has probably presented, in one form or another, more musicals than any other theater in this country. The York's devotion to keeping alive the lesser work of great writers in its musical in Mufti series is particularly dear to me. The York Theater Company is a New York treasure, and I consider it my artistic home. I don't want to contemplate a world without it, so please give whatever you can.
The York Theater. My writing partner Bob Johnston and I have done 3 readings and had a full production at the York. And the great thing about working at the York is that the drama is on stage. And that's a big deal. So thank you, York Theater. Thank you, Jim Morgan. And we hope to be with you again when the pandemic is over.
Anne and Gilbert is a show that I wrote with Jeff Hochhauser and Nancy White. It's been running in Prince Edward Island since 2005. We had our very first reading at the York and our third reading at the York. And on both occasions, Jim Morgan and his staff could not have been more supportive and more creatively helpful. The space itself is a terrific place to work on something new. The stage is wide, grand piano, it's a low stage, the acoustics are beautiful, it's easy to move around, it's easy to get things done. In 2005, we had a Mufti production of Theda Bare and the Frontier Rabbi, and that's where we met Melanie Herman, who led us directly back to the York for My Vaudeville Man. So Jim Morgan and your staff, thank you so much. We owe you so much.
New York Theater is my home away from home. They have nurtured me, supported me. They have produced 3 staged musicals that I've written the music or the script or both. They have been friends. They have been mentors. They have invited me to be a mentor to younger theater artists. And I am nothing but grateful. I turn 83 years from this month, and I fully expect to celebrate that birthday by being an overnight off-Broadway sensation at the York Theater.
I've known Jim Morgan my entire theatrical career. He did the sets for my first musical, Anna Karenina, at Circle in the Square. The sets were better than the show. And then we've done 5 or 6 readings at the York during the course of my career. One of them was a rewritten Anna Karenina, which the Japanese came to and loved. And so we did a production in Japan, which made us a lot of money. And every time I mention that to Jim, he says, well, then some of that money should go to the York. And I always laugh because he's kidding. At least I think he's kidding.
I've been fortunate to see 3 of my plays receive their first presentations at the York, including this one, Souvenir, which went on from the York to Broadway, then around the country, and then indeed around the world. I've seen it in Vienna, I've seen it in Paris. I saw it in Copenhagen, where it was part of the Danish Royal Opera's season. I'm sitting there watching it, and I thought of James and those early days at the York, and I was very grateful. I saw musicals when it was first done at the York, and I'm looking forward to seeing it again. But more than anything, I'm looking forward to seeing the lights come back on in the York Theatre, so they can do what they do, which is present new work, and then see that work bloom, let it go around the country, let it go around the world, so other writers can see their work in Vienna or wherever. And I want to say thank you, James, and thank you to the York, and good luck.
Why I'm really eternally grateful for the York is because of what they did for our show, Cagney, the musical. We'd had a few regional productions, but then in 2014, along with my collaborators, composer Christopher McGovern, playwright Peter Cawley, and the wonderful director Bill Castellino, we brought our show for a reading at the York Theatre 2014. And then between that and our production in 2015, a 5-week sold-out run at the York, we were able to develop our show along with Jim Morgan and guidance from he and others. We really took it to a new level. And it was through that work and that 5-week run at the York and our introduction to New York City that catapulted us into a 15-month super successful commercial run off-Broadway in New York City. So that doesn't happen for us without the York Theater. If you love the musical theater like I do, and you appreciate what they've done and what they do, it's great to be able to have a night where we celebrate the York Theater and all they mean to this city. So thank you, York Theater, and I appreciate you.
Because the York only produces musicals, there is a high level of understanding and support of what's involved in producing new ones. Now the York needs our support more than ever, especially after the recent devastating flood. Please donate what you can to keep this important institution moving forward and continuing its invaluable contribution to New York's theater scene and to the nurturing, development, and appreciation of musicals.
It's so important to give the York Theater Company the room and the space and the support that they need right now to continue doing the great work that they do, the great boundary pushing new musicals that they do and the support of established and young writers. They've always been there for me and for so many other young writers, whether it be, giving me the Neo Award for their songwriting in 2017, or allowing me to work in the box office for some extra cash when I really needed it. They're my artistic home. I'm so thankful for the York and the incredible people there, and I cannot wait to see the incredible boundary-pushing new musicals that they are going to continue to do, and I cannot wait to see all the incredible young writers that they are going to continue to foster. I love you guys. Thank you.
If we cannot save the York Theater, then New York City just isn't worth, living in. If we cannot save the York Theater, we should all move to Iowa or Idaho or whatever is like in the middle of the United States. I don't know any of those states. But listen, the York is a place that nurtures, supports, and celebrates, and gives birth to new musicals. You know how rare that is these days? Without places like the York, the only thing that we would have to go see on Broadway is garbage corporate stuff. And who wants to see that? A lot of people want to see that, but we don't. The ones who really care about musicals, who care about the history of musical theater and the future of musical theater, we know we need the York. We need a place where new writers and established writers can be supported, and where new works can be cultivated, and where old works can be revived and celebrated and be given a platform. I just think that it's like the coolest place.
My writing partner, Stephen Flaherty, and I did our first off-Broadway show in 1988. And 15 years after the fact, we got to see it all over again at the York Theater in their Musicals in Mufti program. It was such a fabulous experience to see that early work of two young, eager writers all over again, to relive it, to see what we did right and possibly what we did wrong. And I am forever grateful to the York for bringing that show back again. The other show that we've done at the York is My Favorite Year. And again, this one was about 20 years after the fact. We first premiered it at Lincoln Center Theater. And what the York gave us was not only a chance to revisit early work, but also a chance to rewrite it. We always knew there was more work to be done on that show, and seeing it in Mufti gave us a chance to really have a good look, to edit, to rewrite, to restructure, and come up with something that we know in the wisdom of later years is much better. So that was a terrific opportunity that we were given by the York. They are so nurturing of the theater community, a little theater organization down in the basement of a church making theater on the highest level. So I just want to say thank you to the York. I'm so happy to be part of your family, and I encourage everyone to join that community. It is so important to the city of New York and to the arts community here. Thanks.
The York Theater is so spectacular that legendary writers have been writing about it for years, like Comden and Green and Bernstein. The York, or Cole Porter. I happen to like the York. And who can ever forget Candor and Ebbs? The York. If you can make it there, you'll make it anywhere. Come on, come through. The York.
They have been champions of theatrical projects, musicals. I personally have had actually 3 of my shows worked on and presented through the York Theater. I'm actually an honorary member of the board. I cherish my relationship with these people. They have been so great to work with. They're wonderful to the artists, the actors, the audiences, and they've recently suffered a real setback with the flood that has driven them out of the space that we've known and loved working in for so long. I would like to ask everyone to please think about being generous and helping out the York Theater at this time of need. It'll mean so much to all of us who work in theater and to me as well. And I send my love and best to my friends at York Theater and Jim, and I'm pulling for you guys.
Every day as you do what you do every day, you see the same faces who fill the cafe. Hi, I'm Stephen Schwartz, and that's a song from The Baker's Wife, one of the shows I was fortunate enough to have produced by the York Theater. I have valued my association with the York for well over a quarter of a century, not only as a writer, but as an audience member, seeing both classic musicals and new ones in development. The York Theater is, quite simply, one of the most important assets we have for the continued health and growth of the American musical theater. Now your home life is different. Now your home life is new.
I'm Charles Strouse. The York Theater is an off-Broadway institution and has been a real friend to my work over the years. They presented production of several of my shows, including It's a Bird, It's a Plane, It's Superman, I and Albert, Marty, and a revised version of Golden Boy. They've allowed me and my collaborators the opportunity to revisit, revise, and improve our work along the way, which is both invaluable and invigorating. They built a place where if I need to see a new work of mine up on its feet, I can always go to them with it and learn what needs to happen next. And being the very first recipient of the Oscar Hammerstein Award, I feel I have a particular interest in spreading the word about how much I love them and their work. While I know the flood they've experienced has been devastating, as the song says, the sun will come out tomorrow, and with your help, they'll be able to rebuild, reopen, and come back stronger than ever. I look forward to being there when they do, wish them at least another 50 years of success, and can't wait for our next show together.
In 2014, Michael Unger directed a first-rate production of Big, a musical I had written 20 years earlier with Richard Maltby and David Shire. The York's bare-bones, stripped-down version allowed the three of us to really hear the show which we had written, to figure out what we had done right and to figure out what we had done wrong. Jim and the York gave us an essential author's experience which we could not have had anyplace else.
Hi, this is Maury Yeston with a message to all my friends at the York Theater and all of the friends of the York to wish you best as we come out of this pandemic era and as we come out of the damage to the theater, and just to remind everybody how special the York has been, is, and will always be to the New York theater community. You know, Broadway is big business, and New York is a gigantic international city, but the York makes us a small town and a community. The York makes it possible for a new young writer to get his or her stuff on the boards without millions of dollars at stake. It makes it possible to do extraordinarily creative things with very limited means. And the great thing about the York is you can put things on the stage that would have worked in Shakespeare's time, and the theater magic happens. And so I urge all of you to look forward to the rebirth of the New York. It's going to be very exciting. Certainly with Jim and everybody who runs it, it cannot be in better hands. And so have a great show, and let's look forward to all of us come roaring back onto the stage.
The York Theater is a New York City treasure. It is the champion of the great historic archives of musical theater, shows that have gotten forgotten that need to be remembered, shows that are better than they are remembered, discovered gems and new work. It's an extraordinary institution, not nearly honored enough in its own city, but it is a national treasure, and I am absolutely thrilled to congratulate everyone connected with the York and congratulate all of you for supporting it.
Over the past 15 years, Jim Morgan, a true mensch among mensches, has honored 3 of our shows with first-rate revivals there. Starting Here, Starting Now not only had an exciting Mufti run, but also a special one-off performance with a reunion of the original cast at the York's 35th anniversary celebration. Closer Than Ever was scheduled to run for 2 months, but due to popular demand, Jim kept extending it for another 3. And the York small stage production of Big was, to our happy surprise, a better representation of our and John Weidman's original intentions than the first one at the Schubert. Thank you so much, Jim. Thank you so much, the York. Here's hoping wherever you wind up post-deluge, your great work will continue for at least another half-century.
The York is unique. No other organization does exactly what the York does in bringing back old musicals from the past and providing an opportunity for new musicals to be seen and developed. Since 1995, 6 of my musicals have appeared at the York in one form or another, 1 full production, a few muftis, and several readings. 4 of those shows I wrote with Gretchen Cryer, 1 with Mimi Turk, and then another that I worked on with Tom Jones. So I can tell you, I can testify that the York Theater is a great place to work.
You see, musical theater writers really need a home, a place where they can try stuff out, work on stuff. And the York Theater has always been that home for Nancy Ford and me. And we've tried out a lot of stuff there. Sometimes it's worked, sometimes it hasn't. But even if it hasn't, Jim never said, oh, go away and never come back. Jim always just said, well, go away and come back with something else.
I want to give my best wishes to the York Theater. The York is a very important theater. Quite often, when I want to try something out, and I know that it's not ready for Broadway, but it needs a good professional production, I can take it to Jim Morgan at the York. And if they do it, I know I'll see it done professionally so that I get a good idea of what I've written. Consequently, for me, the York is a very important theater in New York.
De minimis multimus, out of little, much. And because that's what York stands for to me, out of little, much. A place to nourish your creative sparks without the spangles. An unpretentious place where you can go and attempt to discover some theatrical magic. My first connection with York was 50 years ago when they did the first revival of 110 in the Shade. Since then, and going right up to last year, right before the pandemic started, they have done 10 of my musicals, 6 originals and 4 revised revivals. My wife Janet worked with them in even more shows. She did 20 some odd shows there as choreographer and musical stager. So to conclude, not as Tiny Tim, but as Tiny Tom, God bless the York Theater, and God bless all the people who help it to survive. And I hope you get started soon, because I'm working on some new stuff.